Jeremiah 18. So the potter and the clay, there's an imagery that God told Jeremiah to go to this person's house, and he stepped into this scene where the potter was molding something, but then it got spoiled, so he remade it into another vessel. And so this God used that imagery to explain to Jeremiah and to us how it is that he forms and he tears down nation. So while he's holding up like a piece of clay and molding it, he might say that this is going to be a nation that he's going to raise up, but then if it does evil in his sight, he'll tear it down. However, if like this, there's a nation that is doing evil and he plans to uproot it, but then it relents and it turns away, then he will relent of the disaster. But then there will be a time, like he wrote in Jeremiah, where he kept on relenting, especially towards the nation of Israel, and they keep on doing evil, and their evil, like the later generation, is even worse than the previous generation, then he won't relent anymore. And so when we take the totality of scripture, and God even give us a visual image of what it is that how he's controlling world events, how he's controlling everything, how, and yet his will, our will, if it aligns with his, it's going to prosper, and our will is taken into account in his will also. So he has his own will. He is the potter. He can make anything, any shape or form, the way that he wants to. However, he lets us have our will, have our say in it. In are we going to conform to his will or not? Does it have to be the easy way or the hard way? I think is the idea. And if we submit ourselves, if we align our heart with God's, if we follow the way after God, then we won't be destroyed. And so it's like I said before, like God's way of working is kind of like a condition. If this happened, then this happened. Otherwise, this will happen. So, yeah. And then the thing, though, that made me think most is that Jeremiah, so God says right here that God's people have forgotten him, burn incense to worthless gods, then that their land will be a desolation. People will pass by, shake their head, and when before their enemy, God will not show his face. God will show his back. That reminds me of October 1st, 2024, a few days ago, where I saw the video yesterday. So like about 2-3 days after the event, where Israel was attacked, and there was like just missiles flying down, but then they had a dome like defense thing where it shot down most of the missile. And I just remember when I looked at it, when I watch it, I just am like, this is God's way of protecting his people, and God will protect his people. And this is an example of God being there with his people, fighting for his people, instead of turning his face away. But I can just imagine if God wasn't there and the missiles got through, like Israel would have suffered greatly. And it was like 180 missiles, and so this is just to me something like a modern day miracle, and seeing how God uses people, how he uses technology to defend. But I also remember back then in the stories of the Bible, God said like one person would chase 1,000. And then there are accounts where they just, like in King Hezekiah, I believe, where he just sleep and then the angel go and wipe out the enemy, and then when they wake up it's already gone. So there are many times where God fought for the Israelites, and I think what I witnessed, what was recorded on October 1st was one of them. Then another thing that stood out to me about this passage was that Jeremiah, people were devising plans against him. They were going to dig a pit and then they hide snares so that he would step through it. And so they were really trying to kill him. They were trying to hurt him badly. And then Jeremiah, I contrast Jeremiah with Moses. When God said, "Oh, I will wipe out this people and I will make a new nation from you," Moses stood and said, "God, please don't do that." However, Jeremiah was also a prophet of God, but yet he didn't do that. Because he saw the harm that they were intending for him, he then said, "God, just kill these people. Don't forgive their wrongdoing. May they be overthrown before you." And then, let their wives become childless and widow, and let the man also be slaughtered. So Jeremiah took it very personal and very, he wanted kind of a vengeance for the things that he experienced. And I think that's not to say that Jeremiah was a heartless person. I think he wept and he cried for Israel, but there came a point where he's like, "Yeah, God, these people are just so wicked that it has to be dealt with." And I think during Moses' time, it wasn't that bad. They were stubborn, but they're not wicked. So Moses still can have empathy and ask for God to relent of his anger. And that's what God is seeing, I think. God is looking for men and women who will pray for their nation, who will ask him to help their nation, and help their family to bring good. But when those people become fewer and fewer, and when those people just look around and say, "You know what, these people are so wicked, I don't even want to pray for them anymore," I think that's God judges the temperature of the sin, the extent of the sin, by that. And when there are fewer and fewer and fewer prayers, fewer and fewer people willing to ask God to forgive despite what they're suffering, they're going through, their persecution, then God will use that to know that this is time to execute judgment or not. Because we know in Abraham's time, from what I understand, it's if there is even one righteous person there, God will not bring disaster on annihilation, meaning on that part, on that population. But Jeremiah during this time is so wicked that he is "No, God, I think you have to bring judgment." And I think that's what's I read it and I was thinking about him and Moses, and that's what the conclusion I came to.